Hello and welcome to this unit on what it is performance and the impulse to perform. We're going to talk about the reading for today. We want to think about what we mean by performance. So think about this chapter and do you agree or disagree? What stood out? What did you get confused with? And I want to delve into the three aspects of performance. Why do we perform? As individuals, in communities, and as artists. We see here a picture of a man telling a story to children. In Africa and even in a lot of parts of the United States, African Americans refer to this man that tells the stories as a griot, a storyteller. In Africa, they're the person who would pass down the traditions and the stories. So we perform because we're human. I'm going to use a Latin term for it, homo narrans. And if you break down the Latin term, homo, of course, means human. And narrans, you can kind of guess, it looks a lot like maybe narrator or a storyteller. As humans, we begin to shape our word world through the stories we tell. There's a book by John D. Niles called Homo Narrans, and he explores how human beings shape their world through the stories they tell. So think about it, because it goes through all types of European traditions, African traditions, Asian traditions. It starts with oral technique. Before the written word, there's the oral word. And we can think about that through the epic poems and hymns of early Greece and the tales of the Grimm brothers. We perform as individuals, in communities, and as artists because we like to. As kids, it's innate in us to perform and have fun. And we act out what we see adults doing. You can see these kids here in a war-torn country who are acting like how they see the adults acting. They're putting guns to this little boy's head, and he's pretending to be scared. I saw this firsthand when I visited Israel. Children there in the early 2000s were playing, the very first time I saw people playing video games where they were fighting terrorists. So what they see is how children act, and that's how we are as humans. We're homo ludens. We're humans who like to play, and as children, play is fun, but as adults, people oftentimes don't take actors seriously because they are in plays, they play, but it is innate in us to perform, to be someone else. So let's first talk about performances we have in communities. There are two types of community performances. There's secular and religious. The word secular means of the world, and we can see a secular performance here in a 4th of July parade, and a religious performance here in a wedding. And these are rituals that are performed in our day-to-day lives. And sometimes these rituals can kind of cross the boundary between secular and religious. This picture at the top is a picture of Dia de la Muerte, the Day of the Dead. And it actually, this picture is a picture of Hollywood, but it's a Mexican tradition where they celebrate their ancestors by dressing up as dead people, and the hopes that the ancestors will come back and ward off evil spirits. This tradition happens the day after Halloween, what we traditionally call All Saints Day, November 1st. So it kind of is in that line between secular and religious. Another community performance that's in that line is here. If you haven't guessed by now, this is Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday, in New Orleans, where people throw beads and eat, drink, and be merry, and just totally have lots of fun, dress up. And It is to celebrate right before Easter, when people may decide to give up something. They basically have decadence before they do. And these carnivals are worldwide community performances. They happen in almost all of the Caribbean islands, in Canada and Brazil. I actually experienced being in a carnival in Barbados. Their carnival is called Crop Over, and you literally are celebrating that the crop season is over. I jumped the band and got to wear the big headdress and the bedazzled swimsuit, and we walked in a parade for 5 miles. So this was a huge community celebration and performance in Barbados. We see them in the United States that are not all the time religious. Think about our inauguration. That's a huge performance for us as a community in the United States. It happens every 4 years. Homecomings happen every fall, usually, in high schools all around, and even colleges all around the country. It's a small community performance, watching the ritual of the homecoming queen. This is a picture of the Kachina dancer at the festival holding cattails in Jiménez Pueblo, and the picture was taken in 1960. And you might recall these dancers from your reading on dramatic rituals, which is a celebration or observance that is repeated in a specified way in order to confer certain benefits on the participants. So think about how dramatic rituals in both secular and religious rituals confer benefits on the participants. Maybe they confer something spiritual. Maybe they confer just having fun, hanging out, being with one another, learning something. There's all kinds of ways. So consider that when you think of dramatic performances in the community. So we've talked about community performance. Our next category is personal performance. How do we perform in our day-to-day lives? Paul Laurence Dunbar was a poet, and he wrote a poem called We Wear the Mask. This is just a stanza from it. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. That's what we do as humans every day. We pretend to be one thing for one group of people and pretend to be something else for another group of people. And maybe it's not pretending, but it's different aspects of who we are. We can see Eva Longoria here, just being her day-to-day, round-the-way type of girl self. And then here, she's a beautiful Hollywood TV starlet with her makeup and all. So it's a different mask for different parts of who she is, her persona, which is actually the word for, it comes from the word mask in Latin. Our personality, a person. It has that Latin root word, persona. And speaking of mask, I also want to touch on mask as a convention. You might hear this word when discussing the arts, especially as we're discussing theater. It is the culture of how things are done a certain way for a certain area. A convention in American society is to walk on the right side of the walkway. A convention in our society, our modern society, is to turn off your cell phone when you're in a place where you should be, where someone is speaking, like church or a play. The convention in ancient Greek society, which we'll discuss when we just start talking about what is theater, is that the actors would literally wear a mask and be a different person when they're on stage, so that the audience would know when you see the actor with the mask on, they are playing that persona, they're playing that character. So think about your personal performance. What roles you perform in your everyday life as a spouse, as a child, as a parent, as an employee, employer, a student. The list goes on, and think about other people and the performances that they do. If you get a chance, take a minute when you get around a group of people and just observe a person and jot down how they might be different in one group of people when they're being one persona versus how they are performing for another group of people when they have to be something different. What purposes do these performances in your personal life serve? I added these photos to let you know a little bit about me. These photos actually represent all three types of performance. The one on the left-hand side is a picture of me and my friend Sabrina, and our personal performance as friends. We're dressed up to do a community performance. It was Halloween, and we were going to Hollywood, to West Hollywood, to the parade. And in this picture on the right are also my friends Sean and Stacy, and we're dressed up for a play that we're doing for children, and we have our costumes on, literally have masks on. So if you haven't guessed, we are burglars. It's from an adaptation of the Bremertown musicians called The Musicians of Moskva, which means Moscow in Russian. And then finally, in terms of professional performance, I wanted to show you some photos of a theater group that I belong to in Los Angeles. It was founded to tell the history, folktales, and stories of Asians, and then Latinos, and then once I got there, blacks as well. And you can see that the stories are oftentimes based in who the actors are. So they're showing a bit of their own persona. They're wearing their own clothes. And sometimes it's to be something that you want to be, to put on the mask of a different character. These are them pretending to be superheroes that they wish they maybe could be. And then this photo represents the aesthetic. The aesthetic is a word we'll hear again when we get to directing, and that's what it looks like. We can wonder, why are they in this position? We can see their faces, but we don't know. Are they sleeping peacefully? Were they all killed? What happened? It's all part of the performance. So we've touched briefly on the three types of performance: community, personal, and professional. Thanks so much, and continue to do everything in the module. Have a great week, and then move on to the next module. You'll hear from me again this time next week. Bye.